Friends and family praised Amie as an incredibly loving wife and a devoted mother. When Amie was younger, she had a deep passion for sports. And despite the demands of family and career, Amie maintained her passion for sports and community service as she volunteered as a coach for local women's football teams. And she even ended up winning an award. This case takes place in the UK in the year 2024. Meet Amie Louise Gray. Amie Gray was 34 years old on that fateful day in May of 2024. Amie was born and raised in the quiet seaside town of Poole in the south of England alongside her mother Sharon and her brothers. Her family remembers Amie for her lively spirit, warmth, and a laugh that everybody described as infectious. Sharon often spoke fondly of her daughter, calling her one of the most amazing, funny, kind, and energetic souls. After leaving school, Amie began working at Barclays Bank. It's around this period that her personal life blossomed when she met a woman by the name of Sean. The two quickly fell in love and married, settling down in a poor suburb close to Amie's roots, and together, they welcomed their daughter into the world. By 2024, her friends and family noted that during this period, Amie seemed to be genuinely happy and optimistic about her future. She was a woman who had achieved a lot in her life, and things were looking good. However, on the 24th of May 2024, everything changed. Meet Nissan Sadi. Nissan was born in 2003 and moved to the UK when he was around 4. His country of origin is not publicly known. However, he was brought up in a household that followed Buddhism and spent some of his upbringing in South London. Throughout his school years, Nason was labeled as a social misfit. He exhibited behaviors that led his classmates to avoid him rather than form friendships. With few social connections and never having a girlfriend, he struggled significantly with low self-esteem and persistent feelings of inadequacy. That being said, he didn't have any mental health conditions which may have made socialization difficult. In the classroom, Nason's conduct frequently raised concerns. He made provocative statements, especially directed towards female classmates, claiming women were inherently weaker than men and unsuited for certain jobs, such as policing. Nason's provocative statements took a darker turn when he enrolled in a criminology course at Greenwich University. His classmates observed his increasing fascination with crime. They noted his persistent off-topic questions regarding self-defense claims in murder cases and DNA evidence longevity. His starting position when evaluating a crime case was to try and take the side of the criminal. His obsession with criminal investigation was evident and alarming to those around him, and his disturbing interests extended further. Classmates reported seeing him watching graphic content during lectures. This led people to further distance themselves from him, isolating him further. He progressively grew resentful towards society as a result, and grew a particular hatred towards women. Perhaps the most disturbing warning came when Nason boldly asked his lecturer, "How can I get away with murder?" His lecturer responded lightly, asking if he planned to commit a murder, unaware of how prophetic that exchange would become. During this exchange, his questions continued about forensics, including DNA, and how they were captured and shared. He asked more questions about the steps the police would take when investigating a murder, and how the police would identify and catch the killer. He wanted to know if the police forces in the UK in different areas communicated with each other, exchanging cases and evidence, and how far someone would have to go to get away with a certain offense. After asking his lecturer some disturbing questions, Nason began conducting extensive research into criminal behavior in his own time. In the weeks leading up to his crime, his internet searches intensified. He investigated the challenges killers faced when committing murder in unfamiliar towns. He had the idea that if he was to commit a crime, it would have to be far away from where he lived in Cudden, London. During this period, he investigated whether payments made with cash or credit cards at Airbnb accommodations could be traced. As fate would have it, the location he chose was Bournemouth, the place where Amie Gray lived. On the 16th of May, he booked a stay in Bournemouth from the 21st to the 24th, opting to stay in 2 hotels. On the 19th of May 2024, he began meticulously mapping the CCTV locations at Bournemouth hotels. This was to familiarize himself with the area in preparation for his journey. Nason also had a fixation with knives, which led him to collect 6 weapons deliberately purchased from separate online vendors to avoid detection. Armed with a knowledge of the local surveillance and his knives, he left his home in Cudden and checked into the Travelodge Hotel in Bournemouth. He stayed there from the 21st of May before relocating to the Silverhow Hotel 2 days later. He spent those nights walking up and down the Bournemouth promenade, scouting out CCTV in person to identify the best location to fulfill his deadly aspiration. He also scouted out his escape route. After careful contemplation, he chose the Daily Chimes section of the beach. Also during his stay, Nason attended a screening of The Strangers Chapter 1. This is a horror film about random, motiveless violence, an airy foreshadowing of what was to come with a deep hatred for the world around him, antisocial beliefs, rejection by peers and women, and a disturbing obsession with murder and weaponry. These factors culminated on the 24th of May 2024, shaking Bournemouth to its core. On this day, Amie had headed to the Durlachime beach with her friend, Leanne Miles. The 2 women were sitting on the beach, engaged in conversation. As the sun set and the moon rose, they lit a small fire for warmth. This was nothing out of the ordinary. They had decompressed from a week's work on the beach before, but little did they know, they were about to be made the subject of Nason's heinous obsession and desire to undertake a motiveless kill. At 2240, Nason can be seen leaving the Silverhow Hotel in the dead of night, making sure to cloak himself with his hood as he left. He was wearing all black, including his shoes. It didn't take him much longer than 5 minutes to walk to the Durlachime beach. He then patrolled the beachfront, walking up and down the dimly lit footpath adjacent to the beach. He is then seen walking down the beach from 5:11 to 18 minutes 11. Throughout this time, he glanced over towards Amie and Leanne's glowing fire and merman. He walked past the pair, but then doubled back on himself to take another look. He noticed that they were alone. There was nobody else along that section of the beach. So he had the ability to escape unnoticed. With the element of surprise on his side, he gingerly entered the beach area. This is what the planning and preparation was for. He had been stripped of power time and time again, having been rejected throughout his entire life. For N and his bleak existence, this was his time to take power. As he advanced from the streetlight towards the firelight, he caught the attention of Leanne and Amie. Without a word, he descended upon the unsuspecting friends. The attack was sudden and ferocious. Nason first targeted Leanne, stabbing her multiple times as she sat. Amie stood up and displayed immense bravery, confronting Nason. She screamed at him to stop and attempted to protect her friend. Once Amie had Nason's attention and he was no longer stabbing Leanne, she sensed that he was about to turn his blade on her, and so she ran. Nason pursued her across the beach and inflicted 10 devastating stab wounds. He stabbed her in the chest, shoulder, and arm. Her screams echoed into the night, and she let out a chilling final plea that would haunt anyone who heard it. Leanne was badly wounded. Despite this, as Nan chased Amie, Leanne managed to run the other way and toward the promenade. She began searching for help. Once Nason had finished his assault on Amie, he turned back towards the promenade and chased Leanne. He chased her like a serial killer from a film. They were both running, but Leanne managed to keep a distance so that Nason's knife thrusts were only on her back. He inflicted a further 20 stab wounds before she was able to escape his reach. He had punctured her lung, making it difficult for her to breathe. Yet, remarkably, she still managed to outrun him. Leanne's survival was a testament to her resilience and her sheer will to live. Thankfully, Nason didn't manage to sever any major arteries or veins. But having said that, she was in a terrible state. The emergency services were called, and they arrived swiftly on the scene. Paramedics rushed to Amie's side, but her injuries were catastrophic, and sadly, she was pronounced dead at the scene. Meanwhile, Leanne was rushed to the nearest hospital and was treated for her serious and life-threatening injuries. Nason had fled on foot from the scene, sprinting into the darkness. He stayed another night in Bournemouth and didn't make his way back to Cudden until the next day. By then, he had disposed of his weapon of choice and all of the clothing used to disguise him that night. These pieces of evidence were never found. Nason was incredibly proud of what he had achieved. He scoured online for news articles for breaking news in Bournemouth that very next day. He thought he had committed the perfect crime. With one victim in intensive care and another victim dead, the case was made the #1 priority. Detectives collected extensive evidence from the crime scene, including forensic materials and witness statements. CCTV footage from the area was retrieved, revealing a male suspect approaching the victims and him fleeing after the attack. That very same suspect was observed walking up and down the beach area in the days leading up to the attack. The police then enlisted some help from some gait specialists who studied the walking pattern of a human. With their help, the police were able to follow Nason on other blurry CCTV footage, which led them to a convenience store where Nason had purchased a few items and had paid using his bank card. Of course, this allowed for the police to uncover his name. But more importantly, this was all done under high-resolution CCTV. They had their smoking gun. Overall, the investigation lasted just 4 days, and at 27 on the 20th of May 2024, Nason was arrested by armed police at his mother's home in Cudden. Body cam footage captured these intense moments. Turn around. Walk backwards. Walk backwards towards my voice. Walk backwards. Keep walking. Keep walking. Space. Bring him up. Out. 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 Come out. Come out. Come out. Get on your knees. Down your knees. Down your knees. Look at me. Stay there. Do not move. I've seen you under arrest on suspicion of murder. He barely flinched, presenting as a calm and collected person. He said nothing throughout the arrest at gunpoint. His emotionless, deadpan state continued throughout his police interview. Nason said to the police that he had no reason to commit this heinous crime, and he hoped that this would divert suspicion or ultimately lead to reasonable doubt. But the police had him red-handed. They sought to understand the reasons as to why he did what he did, expecting that he had a motive of some kind, perhaps not directly linked to the two victims. But arrogantly, Nason just told the police that similar clothing seen on the CCTV did not constitute his concrete evidence, insisting that it was merely circumstantial. He was trying to outsmart the detectives, but his attempts were futile. Meanwhile, the police carried out an extensive search of Nason's mother's home in pursuit of the murder weapon, the clothes he had worn, and any other incriminating evidence. Inside Nason's bedroom, officers discovered a knife in his bedside drawer. His grandfather, who was present at the address, directed officers to another knife hidden between the wardrobe and the wall, but neither of these weapons matched the murder weapon. Nason's mother then handed over a collection of knives and an axe that had previously been confiscated from him. What became apparent was that he had a fixation with bladed weapons. However, at this time, nothing directly linked him to the attack. When asked to provide the password for his phone, Mason refused. This was a decision he would come to regret. With Nissan only offering no comment responses during the interview, the police brought the questioning to a halt. He was then charged with the attempted murder of Lean Miles, along with the murder of Amie Gray. Nason was confident that he could outwit the system, so he initially failed to appoint legal counsel. Even after representation was arranged, his engagement with his defense team remained limited, adding to his sense of superiority and highlighted his arrogance. On the 4th of June 2024, Nason made his first court appearance via video link from prison. The judge scheduled a plea and a trial preparation hearing for the 23rd of August 2024. And it's at this hearing that Nason pleaded not guilty. His trial was listed for the 25th of November and was expected to last for 3 weeks, but the weight of the evidence stacked against him and the proceedings concluded in just 9 days. The prosecutors argued that Nason had carefully planned the attack over several months. Evidence included his internet searches, such as, "Why is it harder for a killer to be caught if he does it in another town?" and researched into Bournemouth's beach's nighttime activity. He also studied the terrain of the beach, comparing pebble and sandy surfaces for ease of movement. His academic background in criminology was also scrutinized, including the disturbing questions he would ask his lecturer about forensic investigations, DNA procedures, and how the police forces, quote, communicate about murder cases. The prosecution put forward that Nason targeted his victims out of a deep-rooted hostility towards women born from rejection and humiliation. The court heard that he harbored repressed rage and launched a sudden, brutal attack without provocation. The scale and the intensity of the stabbing indicated a clear intent to kill. And despite boasting to the police that they would never guess his phone password, investigators were able to track his data usage, which showed that he had been following the news reports about the attack immediately after. One disturbing incident, although not admissible in court, revealed his desire for notoriety. While on remand, before the trial at Belmar Prison, and under constant observation, Nason asked a female officer, "Have you heard about the Bournemouth Beach murder? What's being reported? Is there significant media coverage?" He then began to touch himself in her presence. It became clear that Nason sought infamy. He wanted recognition for what he had done, but he also believed that he could get away with it. His defense team pointed out his previously clean record, arguing that the attack was an isolated event. They did the classic trick and claimed that Nason exhibited traits associated with autism, which may have affected his social judgment and ability to form relationships. However, despite trying to pull this card, no formal diagnosis had ever been made, not before or after his incarceration, and the court was not persuaded that this mitigated the severity of his actions. Nason claimed that he had traveled to Bournemouth alone for a holiday and walked the promenade at night because he disliked birds. He insisted that the attack was spontaneous and unplanned. Though he initially denied involvement, Nason later admitted guilt to a psychiatrist and expressed a willingness to engage in rehabilitation. The defense claimed that this demonstrated remorse and a desire to address his behavior, but in the courtroom, it was evident to all. Nason felt no remorse for Amie or Lean, and the jury saw right through him. On the 28th of March 2025, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 39 years. At least by UK standards, a 39-year minimum term is quite a long sentence. And the judge noted that his sentence was influenced by his refusal to provide access to his mobile phone along with his arrogance about it. In her closing remarks, the judge described the crimes as calculated and driven by a disturbing obsession with violence. And with that, the sentencing marked the end of a harrowing ordeal for the community. Amie Gray's family shared their sorrow, remembering her as a vibrant, loving woman whose life was stolen far too soon. In the aftermath of the tragic murder, relatives and friends gathered at sunset on Bournemouth Beach to honor her memory. Her wife Shan and their daughter scattered rose petals into the sea at dusk, a moment that symbolized farewell and love. Shan expressed how the beauty of nature will forever remind her of how beautiful Amie was. Amie's mother, Sharon, also shared how immense the loss was for the family. She said that their hearts are forever broken without Amie, and that life will never be the same again. And the football club that Amie worked with released a touching video tribute titled "Our Coach, Our Friend," celebrating Amie's contributions and the happy memories they shared. It's clear that Amie will never be forgotten, but Nason's name will fade into obscurity.